The box that society builds for you was never built with your name on it, my friend. Yet you have been told what that box is and what it means about where you should be, who you should be, what's possible for you, right? That box sets your limits. Maybe you've got several boxes, probably. We all kind of do, don't we? And in those boxes, right, we learn a whole slew of things that we should or shouldn't or can or can't do, can't have, can't be because of who we are, right? As as women, as queer folks, as straight folks, as Christians or atheists, right? And certainly if you're a person with a disability, you're going to hear those messages. And maybe these messages were direct. Maybe you heard them explicitly from a doctor or a parent or a teacher. Maybe you just learned them from the system that we're in, from the culture that we're in, from the unspoken crap that we're all swimming in, right? That we internalize. But what happens so many times, right, is that we hear it so often, we start to say it to ourselves. We start to believe it. But I'm going to repeat myself, dear one. The boxes that society built for you were never built with your name on it. You've never belonged there. And in this episode, we're going to break those boxes down. This episode is for the woman or man or non-binary person who is done letting the boxes that they've been shoved into and the list of their cans and can'ts and shoulds and shouldn'ts set their destiny. Welcome, my friends, to another Catalyst conversation for a relationship revolution. Here, we challenge the unquestioned assumptions about love, life, and leadership. We disrupt the patterns that are keeping you stuck, and we reveal the truths that no one's told you. Here, we activate new ways of leading relationships, consciously, courageously, differently, and dare I say, better, so that we can have the relationships and the life that most people only dream of. Now, this includes relationships with ourselves, by the way. And I'm so glad that you are here because this is going to be a really powerful and important conversation for all of us. You ready? Let's get into it. So we are in the final week of April's theme, 2026, at time of recording. And this series has been so good. The series name is Hard-Won Truths, Lessons That Transformed Everything. And we have been sitting with and talking about the kinds of truths that you can't get from a book or a course. They only come from living, from going through the shit, from surviving something hard and deciding to let it mean something beautiful. Today's conversation fits perfectly inside this theme because what our guest, Michelle Steiner, is here to talk about is one of the most foundational, hard-won truths that a person can carry, which is the truth that the box that other people built for you wasn't built with you in mind, wasn't meant for who you really are and can be. And the sooner that you stop trying to fit inside those boxes, the sooner that you unlock the true potential of your life, your love, your dreams. Good stuff, right? I know, I'm so excited too. Before we get into our conversation, let me take a minute to introduce myself for those of you who may be new to me and my work. My name is Dr. Jeni Wahlig. I am an award-winning relationship mentor, speaker, author, intuitive guide, and I am a relationship revolutionary. My mission is to revolutionize how we think about and go about our relationships and to redefine what it means to love so that we may all experience the true power and possibilities that all of our relationships have to offer. Because nothing, truly nothing, impacts the quality of our lives more than the quality of our relationships. And we are in relationships all the frickin' time, in every corner of our lives. They are the infrastructure to everything that we are here to build. And most of us have never learned how to do them well, let alone how to do them consciously and relationally, especially when they challenge us. Plus, most of what we have learned, or a lot of it at least, not only doesn't work, keeps us, or is part of what is keeping us stuck and unhappy. So the revolution that I'm about here is essentially a great global healing through the truth of love. It's a return from separation and into our wholeness, a paradigm shift in how humanity relates, loves, and leads, starting at our most intimate levels. In these catalyst conversations, my goal isn't just to give you insight, it's to wake something up within you so that you may be part of this revolution too. Now, my guest today has been told more times than most of us can count the word no, that she can't. She can't go to college. She wouldn't be able to get published. She couldn't have the career that she really wanted. But wouldn't you know, I bet you can guess, she fucking did all of it. And she has built her life into a mission. Michelle Steiner is a writer, speaker, photographer, and paraeducator who lives with a learning disability and who has dedicated her work to helping people with disabilities stop letting those diagnoses become their ceilings. She is on a mission to educate, empower, and encourage, and this conversation is going to do exactly that. Here she is, the lovely Michelle. Welcome, dear one, to Catalyst Conversations for a Relationship Revolution.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to have the conversation.
Me too. This is a really good one. And so before we get into your story, I want to start with the women and the folks that you're working with right now, the ones who are feeling discouraged and stuck, maybe who've started to believe the limits that have been placed upon them. In your experience, like, what is it actually keeping them stuck? Is it their identities, their disabilities? I mean, we know I'm leading somewhere here, right? Like, but that's what we've been told, right? It's who we are, and that's a unchangeable characteristic. So if it's not who we are, then what is it that's keeping them stuck?
Right. I think it's different for a lot of people too. I know there might be people that are women and they might have families, and not every workplace is family friendly with that. So sometimes that can keep them stuck. Maybe sometimes it can be roles in a workplace where women might feel that they want to take on jobs that are traditional for them, and maybe they would want to do something else. I mean, but it's always a choice too. If somebody wants to take on that traditional role, they can do that. If they want to take something beyond that, that's also a factor as well. But, and then some of them have the disability factor. And I think sometimes that can be just an extra layer on with everything else. I mean, it's something where people might feel like they're really stuck in that position.
Mm-hmm.
It can be hard to find a job, and I do have that privilege. People might, if I go for an interview, unless I say I have a disability, nobody would know.
Right.
But then I have to kind of interview people, because then the real difficulties start when I get a job and there's things I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to have an accommodation. And a lot of times people are like, oh, they're really surprised on that. So that can be really hard. And then sometimes it can be hard just with the disability. Once you're at a job and you have a great employer, like I do
Mm-hmm.
now,
Mm-hmm.
with accommodations and just maybe having that understanding and a great working relationship, it's hard because there might be other opportunities out there of things that you would want to do, or and you might be hesitant to take another one because you have something that is good there. So, I mean, those are some
Mm-hmm.
factors too. And then sometimes, excuse me, with me too, is transportation. I'm not able to drive. So sometimes it's even getting to the job site can be difficult. And other places, they might even require that you have a license, even if it's not a delivery job or a job that requires driving.
Yeah.
So it's hard enough for women with employment in the workplace, but it's even harder when you have a disability tacked on that.
Mm-hmm. So yes, and thank you, Michelle. There's a few things that I really want to like reflect and highlight here, because what you're naming, right? If if the limits that are keeping us stuck in our lives aren't who we are or what's
Right.
different about us,
Mhm.
then what I hear you saying is that those limits are oftentimes the systems that we're in, right?
Yes.
The expectations, the requirements, and that's what you're talking about is ableism, right? Which is a
Yes.
very real thing. I
Mhm.
work with a lot of minority folks, as a queer identifying person.
Mhm.
I've worked with a lot of queer and trans folks and gender nonconforming folks, and they
Mhm.
too, right? Like their difference in the world shows up and can affect
Mhm.
how people are treating them or what's
Right.
available to them because of these systemic injustices, and those are real. Same
Mhm.
with being a person of color, and just being a woman, right? The differences in how women are
Yeah.
treated is
Mhm.
is so real in this world, and so, that's a really important piece to name, and I think that a lot of people know that, but
Mhm.
also it's really easy to forget. It's really easy to internalize, right,
Right.
that there's something wrong with me. And
Mhm.
and so I think another piece that I would love to ask you about is like knowing, recognizing that
Mhm.
the system isn't fair and is going to create limits that might keep you stuck. What like, how do our beliefs about them, like, how do our beliefs about what's possible factor in to how we navigate those systemic constraints?
Right. I think it's one of those things. It's a lot of times it's the attitudes that other people have. Everybody growing up has an idea of how the world should be.
Mhm,
And a lot of that is just from our society and our culture. And people have that script in their head of what that is. I know with working at a school, we were told at a training, everybody comes in with a resume with school
mhm,
because everybody's gone to school before. So these are the expectations that you might have, and it's going to be different for everybody. But there's a lot of those norms that people have, and anybody that goes against that
mhm,
is considered different
right,
and can create difficulties with that. So I think that it's a lot of times just other people's beliefs with what they think. I even know with also having a disability, I can remember even when I would get tested and I had this, that the psychiatrist and the staff, they had their beliefs. And
mhm,
they might have said, okay, on paper, this is what makes sense. This is what the diagnostic criteria says that she's going to do with her life.
mhm,
And in reality, I was able to do more than what was on that piece of paper. I
mhm,
just couldn't do math, and I had some other hand dexterity issues with that and my visual perception. So,
mhm,
math, driving, maybe using my fine motor skills were things that I knew not to get involved with.
sure,
But for what that paper was showing, it was something different. And I just think that sometimes even our system that diagnoses people is this cookie cutter, fit
mhm,
into a box kind of thing. Everybody stays into that neat little box, and people aren't that. People are beyond that. And I look back on so many people that were in my learning support classes that I went to school with, and there was a teacher that told me I couldn't go to college
mm,
and suggested a trade school, and a lot of my peers with learning disabilities went to the school.
mhm,
And if I'm not friends with them, but from looking them up, I could tell that some of them have they haven't used a lot of those degrees,
mhm,
and they can't stay at it. They didn't go on to college. They didn't find a job, and then some of them also have some other issues in their lives. And I think it was just that, okay, I'm going to stay in my lane because this is all I can do. And a lot of them, it hasn't really worked for them.
sure. Yeah. It's it's like when we buy into the beliefs that other people hold
Mhm.
about what's possible for us,
Right.
and that right, like the we get that label,
Yeah.
and then there's all of these beliefs about what
Mhm.
that means for what's possible
Yep.
and what's not possible. And when we when we believe those two, they
Right.
become our reality, right?
Exactly.
And it
Mhm.
sounds like you didn't believe what everybody was telling you that you couldn't do.
Exactly. No, I did it. Well, I was also really blessed to have a great set of parents that advocated for me,
Mhm.
and they could see the things I was good at.
Yeah.
My dad could see that I was really good at reading and writing, and he really encouraged me with that. And
Mhm.
I also had friends that it was an adult writing group when I was an older teenager,
Mhm.
and they got to watch me grow as a writer and a person. And I had older friends that were doing the right things in life. And that's been such an influence. And we're still friends 20 some years later.
Beautiful.
And we have the writing group still meets once a month to talk about our writing.
Mhm.
So I had a lot of positive people on that,
Yeah.
and they could encourage me. But I think a lot of it was just my will as well. I knew what I was good at and what I wasn't good at. And that's when I
Mhm.
had that learning support teacher that said, "Oh, you can't go to college. Why don't you just go to a technical school?"
Mhm.
Well, the programs that they offered would have been 10 times harder for me. I don't think that I could drive a car or protective services, so that wouldn't be something that was possible. I
Mhm.
don't think anyone wants me to cut their hair, and cooking involves math, and I didn't want to design a computer or,
Sure.
um, yeah, or to do any of that
None of the
stuff. I mean,
programs were a fit for you, is what I'm hearing.
yeah, exactly. None of them were a good fit, and I
Mhm.
understood that from a pretty young age. And I was pushing forward and said, "Nope, I'm going to go on. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to find my way with doing that."
Mhm. So you decided, right? Like
Mhm.
that, it sounds like that was a really pivotal moment where you recognized that the path that was being prescribed to you
Right.
didn't align with what you knew that you wanted, who you wanted to be, what you wanted your life
Exactly.
to look like. And despite everybody telling you that that wasn't possible, you made the decision that something else was possible and that you were going to pursue it.
Exactly.
And I
Yep.
think that there's so much power in that story, Michelle, because like whether or not the folks listening identify as someone with a disability, I think we can all relate to the experience of being put in those boxes, of being told
Right.
what we can and can't do, and recognizing that that doesn't quite fit. I don't feel aligned with that. And
Mhm.
and against all odds, my friends, like whatever you decide you want to do, who you want to be, what you want is possible, including what you want in your relationship, even if it feels impossible. I got to tell you, it is possible. And
Right.
and not trying for it, right? Not going after it
Mhm.
at the very least, even if you never get there, like I think the journey of the life in pursuit of that possibility is a lot more rewarding a life than one where we just give it up and stay in the box, right?
Exactly.
So,
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about that, Michelle? Like what does it cost a person, do you think, when they try to keep fitting inside these box, when they internalize these limitations, these beliefs about what's possible for them? What's the effect of that?
A lot of times it's confidence. I mean, I went and did it afraid, but I was still
Mm,
like thinking
love
in
that.
my head, I was far from believing it. I thought, I can't do this. I was so fearful it was going to work out. But a lot of
Mhm,
times it's confidence. So people
mhm.
won't feel like they're a confident person, and they might feel stuck. They might feel like, well, I'm at this job and it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
And that really affects how somebody feels about themselves, their abilities, and they
Mhm.
don't have that happiness or that sense of fulfillment. They're
Right.
going to a job that they're doing, and they're going home, and there's not that sense of accomplishment. There's not that, oh, this feels like this is my purpose.
Mhm,
And okay, maybe there is that time when you want to reevaluate that, but they might be too afraid to do that. So it's confidence. A lot
mhm.
sometimes some of them might have difficulties in relationships with other people. That can be really hard to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes people get into really bad relationships with that. Other
Mhm.
times, people might get into addictions, and they because they don't feel good about themselves, and rather than dealing with a lot of those issues, they will just abuse substances. So sometimes
Mhm.
we see that. There's also a really high rate of people, especially ones who didn't get identified in prison, that had
Mm.
dyslexia. And that, so there's been the call for legislation for mandatory dyslexia screenings in prisons,
Wow.
because you're getting somebody in there that, okay, got themselves into that situation,
Mhm.
and uh, then they have to get a job, and trying to find a job with a criminal record is really difficult. And then
Sure.
having that disability on top of it makes it really hard for them. And then it's just this endless cycle of being back into prison again. And
Mhm.
that is, they really want that uh, for that.
Mhm.
And people just sometimes make really poor decisions. And sometimes even too, you might have somebody that someone else is making those decisions for you.
Yeah.
So sometimes we might see in families where maybe they're not going to have addiction. Maybe they don't have those other things that happen to that person
Mhm.
per se. But that somebody else is going to say, well, they're not capable. So sometimes we have people that live at home with their parents for the rest of their lives,
Sure.
or they live at a group home and somebody else makes the decisions for them, and they're not living those empowered lives where they're part of that. And it's not to say there's anything wrong with somebody that needs to have some assistance,
Sure.
somebody that needs a caregiver, somebody that needs, yeah, to have that environment, but we want
Mhm.
to really make sure that a person that is doing that is being involved in that planning, is having a say in that, and that their needs are getting met, but they're the person that's making a direct impact on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Um, you're naming both the importance of our own involvement, our own advocacy in
Hmm.
how our life goes, right?
Right.
Which looks differently depending
Hmm.
upon your ability, but it's also it's relevant for all of us, I think, because
Yeah.
we do sometimes just let those rules, those limits,
Yeah.
those boxes decide for us what's possible and what's not. And as you talk about, like, the consequences can be pretty significant in the
Hmm.
impact of our lives. Um, there's I talk about this quite a bit in the work that I do with couples, how important it is for us to give ourselves permission, especially as
Hmm.
women, to want something better for ourselves, to ask
Right.
for that and not see that as us being needy or being, pushy
Hmm.
or being a burden on someone else. Like, even if your needs are greater than the average Josephina, right? Um, you are worthy of having those needs met
Yes.
because on the other side of it, when we are fulfilled, when we are living outside of the box and living
Hmm.
authentically and honoring the possibility, even when we're
Hmm.
doing it scared. And I love that you named that because courage is such a huge part of the journey toward true happiness and fulfillment.
Hmm.
Like, on the other side of that, there's a whole new life possibilities. Right?
Right.
Like, and I would love if you could speak to that, Michelle, like, what's possible for people when they, give themselves permission to step outside of the box and follow what feels like more authentic and aligned for the life that they want to have for themselves.
It's very empowering to be able to do that,
Mm,
because I focus on the strengths that I have.
mhm,
Whenever I am taking pictures of flowers on my walks, or whenever I'm reading a book or writing something, I don't feel like I have a disability.
mhm,
I feel empowered because those are things that I'm good at. And that's what I can control and what I can change. I can't control that I have a disability. I can't control that there's just I can't control that I can't drive. I can't control that I'm not great with math. I can't
Mhm.
control somebody else's reaction. But there are things I do have power and I can't control. And when you get into that, where you're living your life, where you're thinking, okay, these are the things that do bring me joy and they
Mhm.
bring me, and I love doing them, then you feel empowered. You feel like you're living in your purpose. And
Mhm.
everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses.
Yeah.
It's not to say that sometimes those I have to do those things to come up and I don't really want to have to deal with it sometimes,
Mhm.
but I do. But it's really focusing on those things in life that I can change, I can control, and that do bring me that happiness. And then that makes me feel empowered. I just think that that is just the key, because if I feel that way, then I'm in a much better headspace than
Mhm.
if I'm just focusing on everything that I don't have.
Yes. Yes. And when we're in a better headspace, right? When we're
Mhm.
feeling empowered and happy and
Yeah.
joyful, um, we have so much more energy, don't we?
Yes.
Right? And then
Mhm.
like who we be and how we engage with our lives and the world, that like ripples out. Our
Mhm.
families feel it, our communities feel it, our kids feel it, our colleagues feel it. Our work is better. We're more successful. We're uh,
Right.
healthier in our immune system, right? Like we can't like undervalue. There's like no undervaluing the importance of our own happiness in life. Like, isn't that
Right.
why like what we're all after ultimately is
Mhm.
our happiness?
Yeah, yeah, everybody is after the happiness, and that doesn't mean it's toxic positivity that every time you have to be thrilled
Oh,
about things.
totally. I love that you
But
Mhm.
it is also learning, though, that how we can express our feelings and find those silver linings in sometimes
Mhm.
situations that can be really difficult.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes when we can show that happiness, that just that's a positive example too for the students I work with, for
Mhm.
family, for friends,
Mhm.
and sometimes that can, even just with sharing those struggles in a positive way too, that gives other people that permission that they want to, that they can share that, and we can all kind of be together to be supportive towards
Mhm.
each other.
Mhm.
And it just creates but it's a better environment to,
Yeah.
when everybody is coming together and really working towards being the best version of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate that you named like we're not talking about toxic positivity
Yeah.
here, that like,
Hmm.
even in naming our feelings or
Yeah.
naming our needs or the fact that like what we are living right now isn't
Hmm.
what we want to be living.
Yes.
And right, like and there's real frustration there. There's real pain there, and that's valid and legitimate and deserves to be expressed.
Hmm.
And that's part of the authenticity, right?
Yes.
That leads to happiness, right? That's
Hmm.
how we get there, because if we're not expressing that, if we're not allowing ourselves to name what we really want, if we're not giving ourselves terrified permission to start taking baby steps toward it, believe
Hmm.
for ourselves that it is possible or that we're worth those dreams,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
Then we're cutting ourselves from the possibility of happiness. So this is such a good nuance that you're calling attention to, um, because I talk about happiness and it seems and I recognize in your reflection that I'm talking about it like, oh, we want to be happy all the time. And yeah, okay, great, we do, but that's not the human
Yeah.
experience, right?
No,
The goal though
nobody's
is
happy all the
like,
time. Yeah.
yeah, the goal is like to look at like what is the path to my happiness?
Yes.
And
Mhm.
and sometimes that's expressing my frustration, sometimes that's expressing my grief, right? My
Mhm.
pain. But because by expressing it, I get support. By expressing it, I release it from my body. By expressing it, I honor my life experience.
Mhm.
That is giving ourselves permission to be outside the box, because there's a lot of should and shouldn'ts even about how we feel and what we're allowed to express. right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And so I hope those of you who are listening are like getting that nuance because this is
Mhm.
so important. Okay. So I'm gonna like turn the corner a little bit here.
Okay.
Because this, I think, another really important part of the conversation you're
Mhm.
bringing to the table, Michelle, is you talked about like being someone who lives with a disability, but it's an invisible disability.
Yes.
And I don't know, I probably a majority of my listeners have heard that before, but there was a time in my life where I didn't know that term. So for those
Mhm.
who are listening who may not understand what a invisible disability is, though I think intuitively we can get it, but can you talk about what that is and then like what that means for um, both our own internal like sense of self, as well as I would love to talk a little bit about how those like invisible disabilities in particular can show up in our relational dynamics, whether that's with a partner
Mhm.
or with an employer or a colleague, because
Right.
that shows up in a lot of the work that I do.
Mhm. An invisible disability or a hidden one is are disabilities we can't see. A lot of times people are so familiar with ones we can see. We know if somebody's in a wheelchair, they have a physical disability. Somebody has a facial feature, we can say that it could be Down syndrome.
Mhm.
Um, Somebody might have a hearing impairment and they wear a hearing aid. Somebody has a cane. Somebody has a walker. Those are all disabilities we can see, and we have an understanding. All right, that person might have difficulty with they can't go on stairs. They may not be able to walk.
Right.
They might just have to. Maybe they're not able to hear, and we can see that and we can understand that. But when somebody says that they have a hidden disability, sometimes people are amazed and they don't quite know what to make out of it. I'll tell people I have a learning disability and they'll say, "Well, you don't look like you're disabled." And I have to explain that, okay, we can't see learning
Right.
disabilities. We can't see chronic pain, some which I don't have, but some people have chronic pain. We
Yep.
can't be able to see autism.
Mhm.
And it just because we can't see the disability doesn't mean that it's definitely not a valid one and it's causing some difficulties with other people. And
Mhm.
then another layer that sometimes people add, and this is not ill intentioned, but it's really difficult, is when they say, "Well, I'm giving you a compliment." And
Mm.
I usually cringe at that point because there is
Mhm.
nothing wrong with having a disability. There's nothing wrong with having a visible one. And
Yes.
there's nothing wrong with having ones that we can't see. That to me is just it's another way that maybe somebody has to live. And they're not shameful, they're not problems, they're just
Uh,
a part of who somebody is.
yep.
And sometimes we might see disabilities. I know for me at work, I might I can't do math. All the kids know it or they will soon find out. And I'm no longer thinking I'm incomplete because I can't do that. But sometimes
Mhm.
new staff might not understand that. They might think, well, why can't you do that? And I have to explain that. And I've had to talk to a lot of people and just say, I'm not able to because I have a disability. And that can be difficult. It can be hard for employers too because they can't see that. They hired me. They thought, okay, this person looks quote unquote normal,
Mhm.
has a degree. I mean, she should be able to
Yep.
do the job. Other places couldn't understand why, even with my fine motor skills were off. I can remember I worked for one employer where they wanted all their holes to be punched perfectly, and they wanted to have the staples all in one direction, and I don't
Mm.
do great with those kind of employers. That was hard. It didn't work out with that. Then sometimes with the visual perception, people don't understand that either. They'll think, "Oh, you must wear glasses or you must be visually impaired."
Mhm.
And they don't understand with my brain. And it's also the math part working too.
Yeah.
I can remember when I worked at a childcare, I can't tell my right from my left. And
Mm.
whenever the kids would take their shoes off and I would put them on, I'd put them on the wrong feet. And people would say, "Well, you need to really work on that skill."
Uh-huh.
And it's like, well, this is what I can do.
Yeah.
Sometimes with my handwriting, with the limited hand dexterity. I do not have great handwriting, and people, rather than just say, okay, yeah, you don't have good handwriting, just use the dictation type. People use that as a character flaw. When I was growing up, it was
Sure.
considered a weakness, not being very smart.
Mm.
I even had someone that said I had the handwriting of a serial killer,
Oh gosh.
and was told by somebody else when I was young that you might not be able to get published because you have to have good handwriting. You have to be neat. And I haven't had an editor ask for a handwritten piece. They want to be able to read it
Right.
if they did. And
Wow.
so a lot of times we look at it as a flaw.
Yeah.
And then another thing I come in contact with is I'm not able to read the face of a clock. I can see the numbers, I can see the big hand, the little hand, but it doesn't comprehend to me.
Mhm.
And I have to use a digital watch or clock. And a lot of times people say, well, this is society being lazy. And I'm like, that really, I mean, it's what we're doing. I mean, I use it because I need that, but other people, they should have a choice as
Right.
well in that.
Yeah.
Not against teaching anybody how to write their name, not against teaching anybody how to read the face of a clock, but I think we have to, as a society or as a school, we have to go in and say, all right, we're going to teach this to the students as one method, as a tool, and if it doesn't work, then we're just going to teach something else for that person and something that will work for them.
Mhm.
So I think that is one of the things. And I also think sometimes people might misread things with other things, like with autism. You know, sometimes somebody may not have what somebody would consider appropriate social cues for that.
Mm. Mhm.
And even that, sometimes we have to wonder, is that really something that would matter for that? Or can we be more inclusive?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I think one of the things that I see come up a lot
mhm,
in couples where there's a hidden disability, well, and one of the two
mhm.
things, I suppose. One of them you named, which is the like both the internal and external
Yeah.
reflections that this is a character flaw, right?
Yeah.
That we should
Mhm.
be able to correct this,
Yes.
do
Mhm.
something about it to stop having it be a difficulty or an
Mhm.
inability, right? Because when we're talking about disability, a lot of the time it's an inability. My brain just
Yeah.
doesn't compute a clock
Yeah.
face into time. It
Right.
like um and and so that like I know folks with hidden disabilities internalize
Mhm.
that even and I'm
Yep.
so glad you named chronic pain too because that is a disability
Mhm.
as is mental illness, right? Like
Mhm.
depression is a
Yeah.
disability, especially when it's severe, anxiety, bipolar
Yes.
disorder.
Mhm.
These seriously affect our lives and
Yes.
depending on the disability though, um in our relationships both the person with the disability
Mhm.
and our partners or family members can forget about them, can minimize them,
Yep.
can understand them cognitively, but not really understand the
Right.
implications and still try to hold that standard. And I gotta share a little
Exactly.
story here, Michelle, because
Mhm.
I was a perpetrator of that ableism myself in my
Mhm.
relationship with my partner, Calvin. It was actually one of the
Mhm.
biggest realizations I came to that helped us turn our relationship around when we were really struggling. Uh, Calvin is ADHD, and
Mhm.
uh, he like did not, and a lot of the time does not have the ability, the real
Mhm.
like brain neurological ability to do
Mhm.
executive functioning the way that I do, to
Yep.
do emotional regulation the way that I do, to do eye
Mhm.
contact the way that I do, right? So those are all really key pieces in relational dynamics, um,
Mhm.
Plus, there's the whole impact of growing up different and then getting all this feedback that, left him feeling like the way that he's different is a problem and he sucks because of it,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So that
Yeah.
shows up in relational dynamics. And I didn't get any of that. I'm just coming in from my high horse of academia, of this relationship expert thinking you should be able to communicate like this. You should be able to, like, why aren't
Right.
you making eye contact with me? Like, look at me when
Mhm.
we're trying to have this serious conversation. And
Yep.
why did you forget to do this? And why can't you, like, why didn't these things get done before I got home? And there were so many pieces that
Mhm.
created struggle between us, that created
Right.
frustration for me, and also, like, it, intensified Cal's, sense of not being seen, and also his sense of not being good enough, of somehow being broken. And I
Right.
was I was part of that. And I share that really openly because I think, for those of us listening who maybe don't identify as someone with a disability, though I think this conversation does apply to all of us
Mhm.
because we're talking about boxes.
Right.
But if you're in relationship with someone who does have a hidden disability, whether
Mhm.
that's ADHD or autism or chronic pain or learning disability or mental illness, like there's a lot of on the spectrum that can affect their ability
Yes.
to show up and engage with life, including the relationship with you, in the ways that you would prefer. And I know that that's hard. And if you've been listening to my stuff at all, I'm always going to come back to where our personal power is and what
Mhm.
it really means to love. And loving someone means, like, doing the loving thing, responding for the highest good of everyone. That means
Yes.
sometimes giving up some of our privilege, making accommodations, carrying more of the load,
Mhm.
like, and that can feel imbalanced, but I mean, is it really imbalanced when the balance for the person with a disability is always, like, so much underprivileged compared to those? No, it's like we're, like, stepping down a little bit so they can step up a little bit, but the balance is
Right.
probably still in the non-disabled person's privilege. And
Exactly.
I just wanna call that
Right.
out.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So this is such a great and important conversation, and I really thank you for sharing your story and your wisdom and expertise. We don't talk about disability enough,
Mhm.
um, and it is a part of so many people's lives. And
Yes.
more often than not, and maybe, let me know if you agree or not, but I think more often than not, those disabilities are invisible or hidden, and we're
Exactly.
interacting with people in our world not even aware.
Exactly. A lot of times people don't know because they can't see them and they wonder, "Hmm,
Mhm.
why is that person doing that?"
Yeah.
And a lot of times people don't understand that there is a reason and not to really judge because we don't know what somebody is struggling with.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, my hope, for those listening, is that this conversation brings us both into appreciation for what we have,
Mhm,
humility for
mhm,
around who we are and our
mhm,
assumptions about
mhm.
others, and also permission for ourselves that that we do not need to be defined by any box
Right,
or any limitation someone else said is set for us. Like, we get to go
exactly.
after who we know ourselves to be and what we desire to create for ourselves. That's my wish for this conversation.
Mhm.
Michelle, what would yours be? Like, before we wrap up, if you could leave our listeners with one, like, your key message, what is the one thing you most want them to remember?
What I would love people to just to remember is to know what they want and be
Mhm,
able to find a way to be able to do that, whether you have a disability or you don't. and not to live in somebody's box that
Yes,
somebody wants you to put into, and to really live in what your truth is and what really does work for you.
I love that. It's so real, so important. Thank you so much. Before I let you go, tell us where people can find you, and is there anything you would like to offer to our listeners today?
You can find me at my blog at www.michellesmission.com.
Beautiful.
And one of the things that you can find on there, I don't have my own book, but I have the links on there to my articles. And I've had stories published in 4 anthologies that you can check out on my blog.
That's amazing. And I believe you have a free gift, Steps to Success with a
Yes,
Disability?
steps to success. Yes, I have that as well. So yes, I can give the code
Awesome.
to, yes, steps to success with advocacy. Yep.
Awesome. And I will make sure that those links get in the show
Yes.
notes for
Okay.
those of you who are listening. Um, Michelle, I'm going to move you backstage, but thank you again so much for your time, your energy, your story. This
Sure.
has been just what I hoped for in this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Friends, wasn't that like so empowering and real? Like we need to have this real talk. Um, if you got something from this episode, and I can't imagine that you didn't, because there was a lot of really important pieces here. But if you did, I would love for you to do me a favor. Go and subscribe, like it too, right? Like the episode and subscribe to the Relationship Revolutionary podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave a review. Tell me what you thought. What's coming up for you? Share this episode with another woman or person who may need to hear Michelle's story today. Your word of mouth and your engagement with the podcast helps get these conversations into rooms that Michelle nor I wouldn't be able to otherwise. And if you want to help me activate and accelerate this global movement in revolutionizing relationships, follow me on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Share about all of the work that we're doing here at Powerful Love. Attend our events. And of course, do your part to continue to lead with love. If you're looking for support for yourself, please reach out. There are numerous ways that we can support you. I want to tell you about two of them now. The first is our Relationship Revolution community. This is a space for women just like you and the partners who love them, should they desire to join, where we take the ideas that we talk about in these catalyst conversations and apply them to our lives. Because learning and growth are two separate things. The real transformation, the real growth doesn't happen until we have integrated the things we've learned here into the practice of who we be. And the Relationship Revolution community is exactly where we do that. It's a monthly membership, and I truly believe it's unlike anything you're going to find out there. There's exclusive trainings, behind the scenes content. We have monthly coaching calls. There's opportunities to ask questions and get support anytime you need within the group, and weekly exercises that keep you in the evolution, the growth of your relationship so that you're always leveling up. If you know that you want to go even deeper and learn how to create change more quickly in your relationship, I am launching a new masterclass. This is a free masterclass. I'm going to see how it feels to do it every other Tuesday. So there's lots of opportunities to join me, but it's a masterclass for women who are ready to feel happier and more fulfilled, more aligned and supported in their relationships. I'm calling it How to Get Your Partner to Finally Show Up the Way That You Deserve Without Burning Out to Make It Happen. It's a long title. It's a work in progress, but that's where I'm starting. So this is a live interactive session. It's free, it's powerful, and it's going to change the way that you see your relationship and the way you engage in your relationship. So if you've been looking for a way to do things differently and actually get them to change, I want to see you there. I'll put the link to register in the show notes. That's all we have for you today, my dear ones. Thank you for joining us and being a part of this revolution. I hope to see you next time for another Catalyst conversation. New episodes drop every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific. Until then, keep leading with love, my friends.